My name is Joe Esposito. I was Elvis Presley's road manager and right-hand man and a very close friend of mine. I loved him very much. From the time we were discharged from the Army in 19...
He said it softly, like he was trying not to wake the night itself. "There are 2 doors I walk through every day," Elvis told him, "and one of them doesn't have my name on it." The man telling the story is 80 now. His voice trembles, not from weakness, but from the weight of something he's carried too long. He was there the night Elvis first said those words. A night in Memphis, rain on the windshield, both of them sitting in silence before the words finally broke out. He says Elvis's eyes didn't shine that night. They burned. "One door," Elvis said. "That's the one everybody sees. The lights, the screams, the boy who's supposed to be perfect. The other one, that's mine. The one where I get to be nobody." He thought Elvis was joking, but he wasn't. It was the first time the king hinted that there were really 2 men living inside one name. The friend had met him years earlier, back when Elvis still laughed easily. He remembers the handshake, firm, polite, nothing like the man people expected to see. They hit it off quick because Elvis could tell who wanted the myth and who wanted the man. He once said, "You can feel it in the way they look at you. Some people look for gold, some look for you." As fame grew, that split became a system. There was the outer circle, managers, hangers-on, opportunists orbiting him for the light. And then there was the inner circle, a handful who saw him after the lights went out. The old friend was one of those few. He describes it like this: when the world saw him smile, he was clocked in. When he fell quiet and lit a cigarette, he didn't even smoke. He was clocked out. That was the signal. The mask was off. There were tells, little signs only the close ones knew. The way he'd loosen his ring finger, roll it twice, and sigh before turning serious. The way he'd lower his voice when talking about faith, like the Lord might be eavesdropping. The way he'd put on that plain brown jacket, no rhinestones, no flash, just a regular man trying to exist for a few hours. He once told his friend, "People think the stage takes your energy. It doesn't. It takes your soul, one applause at a time. You give a piece, and they never give it back." At first, the friend thought it was just fatigue, the kind any performer feels after the crowd leaves. But he started seeing patterns. After every tour, Elvis would withdraw no phone calls, no business, just him late at night, sitting by the piano in Graceland, picking slow gospel chords, mumbling prayers. That's where the double life began. Not in scandal, but in survival. He had built an empire out of charisma and hunger, yet he was still that poor boy from Tupelo, the one who prayed his mama wouldn't see him cry. He carried both lives inside him like 2 rivers that could never meet, one loud, one quiet. The friend remembers one night in '66, after a recording session that stretched past dawn. The producers were frustrated, pushing for a certain sound. Elvis smiled for them, gave them jokes, but when they left, his shoulders dropped like a man removing armor. He looked at his friend and said, "They think I'm tired. I'm not. I'm gone. Just not the way they think." It wasn't arrogance. It was grief. The kind that comes from living a life that everyone owns except you. Within his circle, there were unspoken rules. No cameras past midnight. No business talk after the second coffee. No gossip about who showed up at the gate. The moment the crowd faded, the world behind those walls became sacred. But cracks were forming. The colonel's men, the handlers, had plans brewing that would stretch Elvis's public persona to new extremes. More tours, bigger audiences, more product lines. They wanted to bottle the myth and sell it everywhere. The friend overheard a conversation one evening, plans for a publicity move that would cement Elvis as an untouchable icon. It sounded harmless, even flattering, but he could see what it meant. If Elvis agreed, he'd be signing away the last bit of privacy he had left. That night, the friend found him sitting alone, staring at a framed photo of his mother. Elvis didn't look up. He just said, "If they make me choose between the man she raised and the thing they built, I don't know which one will survive." There was a long silence before he added, "I'll make it right when they're not watching." It was then the friend understood. This wasn't about ego or rebellion. It was about a man trying to hold onto his own reflection before fame finished erasing it. The double life wasn't a secret affair or a hidden mansion. It was a hidden self. The part he showed to only a few. The part that prayed, doubted, laughed, and wanted to vanish into anonymity for a single day. The friend never told anyone, because how could you explain it? To most people, Elvis was either saint or sinner, showman or recluse. But to those who knew him after midnight, he was both. A man standing between two doors, begging for air. And every time the crowd roared his name, you could see a flicker in his eyes. Pride, yes, but also something like mourning. As if each cheer reminded him how far the two halves had drifted apart. The friend still remembers that look. It haunted him for years. Because deep down, he knew what Elvis meant that rainy night when he said one door didn't have his name on it. He meant the world had claimed the man, but the soul inside still belonged to God. And the tragedy wasn't that he lived two lives, it's that he never got to live just one. They say fame feeds you until it starts eating you back. By the early 70s, Elvis had begun to feel the teeth. Every show, every handshake, every contract was another tug at the man he used to be. The cameras didn't blink anymore. They just consumed. That's when the pressure campaign began. Meetings turned into orders. Schedules came sealed like court summons. "They want to run me like a machine," he told his friend, shaking his head, "but a machine don't dream." The Colonel called it momentum. Elvis called it the trap. Every month came another deal. TV specials, movie offers, Vegas residencies. The Colonel would smile that salesman's smile and say, "You're giving the people what they want." But what if the people didn't know what he wanted? What if he didn't either? One night, after another meeting that ended in quiet defeat, Elvis grabbed his keys and said, "Come on, I need to drive." They rolled through the empty back roads outside Memphis. No headlights for long stretches, just moonlight and the low hum of tires on old asphalt. That's when he started talking about the two doors. He said it as if explaining a dream that kept returning. "One door," he told him, "opens to everything they think I am. The fame, the flash, the voice that fills stadiums. The other one's dark. That's where I keep what's real, peace, faith, the parts I don't owe anybody. But every time I walk through one, I lose a little of the other." He gripped the steering wheel tighter. "The crowd cheers when I walk through the first door," he said, "but I only feel alive when I'm behind the second." The friend asked him which one he'd choose if he had to. Elvis laughed softly. "Depends on the night," he said. "Some nights, I think God lives behind that quiet door. Other nights, I think He's in the crowd, testing me to see how long I'll last." That drive lasted hours. No destination, just movement. He said the car was the only place where he could still think without being seen. But the cost of those two doors was growing. People he loved started to drift. or worse, get hurt by the distance. He'd miss birthdays, break promises, cancel plans. Not because he didn't care, but because caring too much for both worlds was killing him. One woman he was close to once told the friend, "He gives you the world 1 minute and vanishes the next," like he's scared love might pin him down. And maybe she was right. Elvis once said, "If I stay too long with anyone, they'll see the cracks, and I don't want to be forgiven for being tired." The guilt of it all hung heavy. He'd give away cars and houses like apologies he couldn't say out loud, but the generosity never bought him freedom. It bought him more people who needed him, and each need was another lock on the wrong door. Then came the reporter. It was a magazine piece, supposed to be light, cheerful, an inside look at the King's new tour. But somewhere during the interview, Elvis drifted off script. He spoke about searching for home, about needing a place where noise can't find you. The reporter leaned in, sensing something raw. For a second, it looked like Elvis might tell the world everything: the 2 doors, the double life, the quiet rebellion no one saw. But then he caught himself. The grin returned, the practiced charm, the wink. "You know me," he said, "always chasing a dream." The friend later asked him why he stopped mid-thought. Elvis said, "Because truth doesn't sell records, and lies don't let you sleep." That was the night the friend realized Elvis didn't need an audience. He needed a confessional. But confession requires trust, and by then, trust had turned into a currency no one could afford. Still, there were moments of rebellion, small, almost invisible ones, like when he'd skip a rehearsal to visit an orphanage unannounced, or when he'd walk off stage early just to sit in the dressing room humming gospel under his breath. It wasn't defiance, it was self-preservation, but rebellion has a price. The Colonel's men started watching more closely, questioning every delay, every change in routine. "You're getting unpredictable," they said. Elvis just smiled and answered, "I've been predictable too long." The friend noticed a shift then. Elvis stopped explaining himself. He'd nod during meetings, sign the papers, then retreat into silence for days. It wasn't surrender. It was strategy. He was saving pieces of himself in small jars of quiet so there'd be something left when the noise finally ended. One night, the friend found him scribbling something on hotel stationery. Just a few lines, nothing elaborate. When he asked what it was, Elvis folded the paper and tucked it into his pocket. "Notes for when I'm not around," he said. "Don't read it yet." But curiosity got the better of him later. The note was short, written in a trembling hand. "When the doors get too heavy, I'll have to pick one. But whichever I choose, promise me you'll tell them I tried to walk both with grace." It wasn't signed. It didn't need to be. In those words lay a warning and maybe a plan. Elvis was mapping his exit, not in some dramatic way, but like a man preparing for a long rest. The next weeks were quieter. He'd talk about starting over somewhere small, about finding a church that didn't care who he used to be. The friend wanted to believe him, wanted to think maybe he'd finally found peace. But peace was the one thing fame never let him keep. And when the phone rang one morning, the friend knew before answering that something had changed again. Elvis had made another promise to himself, another vow no one else was meant to see. He didn't say it out loud, but the friend felt it deep down. Elvis was getting ready to choose a door. And for the first time, he was terrified that when he did, he might not come back through it. They said he had it all. But by the early 70s, Elvis felt like a man being swallowed by his own reflection. Every contract, every camera flash, every yes sir from the colonel, it was one more brick in a wall he never built. He'd smile for the crowds, then spend nights pacing the floor, muttering that same line. They've turned my name into a business. His friend watched him age in silence, not by years, but by obligations. The world didn't want the man anymore. It wanted the myth, and the myth was starving the man to death. The pressure came from every side. Record deals stacked like debts. Tours planned before he'd even finished the last one. Colonel Parker's men spoke in terms of numbers and brand consistency. Elvis would just nod and say, "Funny, they keep calling it my career, but it don't feel like it's mine anymore." Then one night, after another endless meeting, he walked out without a word. His friend followed him outside, expecting him to explode. Instead, Elvis just said, "Get in. I can't breathe here." They drove for hours, no destination, just black roads stretching under the headlights. And somewhere between the city lights and the country dark, Elvis finally said it. "There are two doors in my life. One they built for me, and one I built for myself." He paused, eyes on the empty highway. The first door's the show. The crowds, the glory, the noise. Every time I step through it, they cheer like I've come home, but I haven't. The second door's the quiet one, where I can talk to God, play the songs that never got recorded, and remember who I am. But I can't walk through both at the same time. The friend asked him which one he wanted more. Elvis smiled, tired. "Depends on the night. Some nights, I miss the noise. Other nights, I'd give everything for a silence that don't feel like punishment." It was the most honest thing he'd ever said. But honesty couldn't change what was coming. The business was tightening its grip. More appearances, more interviews, more ways to stretch the myth until there was nothing left of the man who once just wanted to sing. The friend saw what it was doing to him. He'd walk into rehearsals looking hollow, his laugh too sharp, his patience gone. Some nights he'd whisper, "I don't even know which version of me they're paying for anymore." Even his relationships began to fracture under the strain. He'd promise people time he couldn't give, affection he couldn't sustain. And every broken promise became another scar on a heart already tired of apologizing. One woman told the friend, "He loves like a storm, loud, bright, and gone by morning." Maybe she was right. Elvis couldn't stay too long in anyone's calm. It reminded him of what he'd lost. The guilt followed him everywhere. He'd buy gifts for everyone, cars, jewelry, houses, as if generosity could wash away the emptiness. But it never did. "You can't outgive loneliness," he once said. "It just grows quieter when you try." Then came the reporter. It was supposed to be harmless, a puff piece, all smiles and nostalgia. But mid-interview, something cracked. Elvis started talking about wanting peace, about needing a place where the noise can't find me. His friend thought for a second he might finally say it, that he was living two lives, that the price of being Elvis was killing him. But then the practiced grin returned. "Aw, I'm just tired," he said. "The king needs a nap." The room laughed. The truth went back into hiding. Later, when his friend asked why he stopped himself, Elvis just shook his head. Because once they know you're human, they'll never let you be one again. Still, rebellion flickered in small, quiet ways. Sometimes he'd vanish for a day, show up at an orphanage or a small-town diner where nobody expected him. Sometimes he'd skip rehearsals to sit at a piano, playing gospel until dawn. These were his secret victories, tiny escapes through the second door. But Colonel Parker noticed. "You're getting unpredictable," he warned. Elvis only smiled. "Maybe I'm just getting honest." Then one night, the friend found him scribbling something on a crumpled napkin. He said it was nothing, but when he left the room, the friend unfolded it. Just one sentence. "When they stop listening to my songs, maybe they'll finally hear my silence." That line stayed with him for decades, because it wasn't just poetry, it was prophecy. Elvis was already preparing to walk through the quieter door, and though no one knew it then, the man who gave the world 1,000 songs was about to start writing his last one, in secret, for no one but himself. When people talk about Elvis now, they argue over which one was real, the legend or the man. But maybe that was always the wrong question, because to those who knew him best, the truth wasn't that he lived 2 lives, it's that he lived both honestly. The friend says even in the final years, when the cameras caught only the shine and not the sorrow, there were signs of the second door everywhere. You could hear it in the way his voice changed during gospel songs. Softer, lower, almost like a prayer whispered through the microphone. You could feel it in how he'd pause mid-show, close his eyes, and seem to drift somewhere the crowd couldn't follow. Those weren't stage moments. They were escapes. Tiny windows where the private man slipped past the myth for a breath of air. After he was gone, people rushed to write their versions of him. Books, headlines, theories, everyone chasing a crown they never wore. But the friend stayed quiet. He had made a promise. He'd tell the story only when he was old enough that no one could twist it into profit or scandal. Now at 80, his hands tremble as he speaks. Not from weakness, from reverence. He wasn't running 2 lives, he says softly. He was protecting both. One for the world, one for God. He pulls out a small worn object, a gold cross, the chain broken long ago. Elvis had given it to him one night and said, "If the noise gets too loud, hold this. It means I'm still choosing the quiet door." The friend never told anyone, not even family. He kept it hidden, the way Elvis had taught him to keep certain things sacred. Looking back, he realizes the double life wasn't a contradiction. It was a shield. The myth existed so the man could survive, even for a little longer. And in those last months, when reporters said Elvis seemed distant or distracted, maybe that wasn't decline at all. Maybe he was finally at peace with the fact that both doors led to the same place. Because behind the fame, behind the headlines, there was still that small boy from Tupelo who prayed before every meal, who sang so his mama could stop worrying, who believed that God gave him a voice not to be worshipped, but to reach people who'd forgotten how to hope. The friend pauses, then says something that catches in his throat. He once told me, "If the world ever makes me pick, I'll disappear." And maybe he did. Maybe that's what dying was for him. The quiet door finally opening. He looks away for a long moment before finishing. People think death ended his story, but I think it just set him free. You can't live forever trying to be 2 men at once. At some point, one soul has to step forward. And maybe that's what Elvis did in the end. Stepped forward, not as the king, not as the star, but as the man who finally stopped choosing between doors. The man who walked through both and didn't look back. The friend says he sometimes dreams of that night again. The rain on the windshield, the words he never forgot. "There are 2 doors I walk through every day," Elvis had said, "and one of them doesn't have my name on it." Then he smiles faintly. Now I think I understand. He wasn't talking about fame or secrecy. He was talking about heaven. Maybe that was the real double life. Not between two worlds, but between this one and the next. And somewhere, maybe, Elvis finally found the peace he was always chasing. Behind the quiet door, where applause can't reach and the music never ends. If this story moved you, share it with someone who still believes the man behind the legend deserves to be remembered. Do you think Elvis ever found peace before his final curtain call? Let us know in the comments, and subscribe for more untold truths that keep his spirit alive.